Hello students, so I'm going to show you how to make the atomic structure foldable. And so I'm just going to use some line paper because I'm out of printer paper, which you can do if you don't have printer paper as well. But the first step that you're going to do is actually fold this so that it's a square by taking one of the corners and folding it all the way to the edge. Like so, and then you're just going to chop off this part here. Alright, so now we should have a square, okay, or something like a square. You have this crease here. I'm going to make another crease going the other way because it'll make the next step a little bit easier, so that you now have an X at the center, okay? So now what you're going to do is actually fold in each of these corners, okay, to the center. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now so that you end up with a 4-corner foldable. And don't be OCD about your corners matching up. It's nearly impossible to get them perfect. So what you're going to do now, you should have something that looks like this. And so what we're actually going to do at this point is we're going to cut off the tip of each little triangle here. So you do that by first taking this flap and folding this point to meet the top of the square. And then that'll make a crease so that you know where to cut at, so that it's, you know, roughly even all the way around. So I folded that down so that the top of the triangle met the line here. And so now I'm just going to lop off that little piece that I folded. Okay, so I'll have that which I can recycle. Okay, so now you should have like a little trapezoid shape at the top. And so now you're going to do that same thing with the other three triangles there, triangle flaps. Okay, just lop off those tips there so that at the end we end up with part of that square underneath showing through. And if you don't have scissors, you can fold it really good, make the crease really sharp, and then you should be able to just tear it. Okay, so this is what we end up with now at this point. So what we're going to do now is label each of these 4 tabs. The top is going to be the nucleus. You want to kind of center it on the top. You'll see why here in a minute. The nucleus. And then the right side is going to be, not atomic mass, but mass number. Okay, so we've got mass number. The bottom here is going to be electron cloud. Okay, and then the left side tab is going to be atomic number. And I'm just going to use the number sign. Okay, so now what you're going to do is actually in the center here, you're going to draw a basic bare bones atom, the structure of the atom. Okay, what an atom would look like if you could see it. And so we're going to label that there the atom. like that. And so now I'm going to draw an ugly version of what you're going to draw. You should be using color and making it look nice and neat. I'm just doing it for the sake of example. I don't actually have any colored pencils. Or I might somewhere, but ain't nobody got time for that. But you do. Okay, so I'm just going to draw a basic nucleus and the electron cloud. Okay, and then go ahead and label each of those parts. All right, we've got protons, neutrons, and electrons. All right, and I'll let you do that on your own. If you have questions, let me know. So we have just one more little step here, really, to the nucleus. And what we're actually going to do is take our scissors and we're going to snip right up the center of that little flap there, because we're going to make that into two flaps because we have two different particles in the nucleus, right? So on the left we're going to have protons, and on the right we're going to have neutrons. Okay? See, protons, neutrons, isn't that neat? Okay. So now let's talk about what goes underneath each of these flaps. So let's start off with our protons. We know protons are positive and that they're found in the nucleus. We also know that they have a mass of 1 AMU. So that's what we're going to write there. And AMU stands for atomic mass unit. It's just like another unit, any other unit, like inches or feet, miles, etc. Okay, so protons are positively charged. Okay, they're in the nucleus, and their relative mass is 1 AMU. Okay? Just like that. They're positively charged, they're in the nucleus, and they have a relative mass of 1 AMU. Now we're going to do the neutrons. So the neutrons are neutral. They're in the nucleus, and they have a mass also of 1 AMU. Okay. Pretty snazzy, right? Now let's look at the mass number. Okay, so the mass number, we're going to write that underneath that flap. I wish you could see this. Okay, so mass number. This is actually going to be the number of particles in the nucleus. So we're going to write that. Number of particles in the nucleus. Okay, so that's going to be the total number of particles in the nucleus. Well, what kind of particles do we have in the nucleus? We have protons and we have neutrons. So we can find the mass number simply by adding the two together. So I'm going to say the mass number is equal to your number of protons plus your number of neutrons. So you can actually just write mass number equals P plus N. I think that's sufficient. Okay, so the mass number is how many particles there are in the nucleus, and it's equal to your number of protons and your number of neutrons added together. What's also pretty snazzy is you can actually find this number on the periodic table, or really you'll find the atomic mass, which is usually very close to our mass number. Okay, and so I'm going to draw a little periodic table tile, a little square here, and I'm going to put carbon in it. Okay, so if you look on the periodic table, Carbon has a top number there in one of the corners of 6 and a bottom number of 12.011. Now that bottom number is what we call the average atomic mass. It's an average of all the different carbon atoms in the whole world. So this number is never, or not never, but usually not going to be entirely the same as the mass number, just because of the way that atoms are. But it's usually very, very close. So let's go ahead and we'll circle that. And draw an arrow to it. Okay, it's usually going to be very close to that number. And if I don't give you the mass number, you can assume that it's that number rounded to a whole number. Okay. Just like that. Okay, so let's talk about the atomic number really quickly. The atomic number is actually that top number that we wrote in the carbon square, and it is equal to the number of protons. And what's cool is that the entire periodic table is arranged in order of increasing atomic number. Over here. Sorry. So we're going to write that, the atomic number. That tells us the number of protons in the nucleus. Okay, so the atomic number of an element tells us how many protons there are in the nucleus. Pretty snazzy, right? So I'm going to draw my carbon square again. Okay, I've got carbon's symbol, I've got its atomic number, and its atomic mass. Okay, this time I'm going to circle the 6. So by looking at the periodic table and looking at the atomic number, I can actually determine the number of protons that any element has. So in this case, carbon has 6 protons. Okay. So now, let's talk about the electron cloud. Now, we're not going to write very much here now, but later on, we're going to come back to it and add. For now, we just know that the electron cloud is where we expect to find the electrons. Electrons are found, okay, where electrons are found, and you also want to write in there what an electron is, right? Electrons, sorry cat, I don't have time to deal with you right now. Electrons are negatively charged. So that's what we want to write there. So the electron cloud is where electrons are found, and electrons are negatively charged. And we also want to mention there that the mass of an electron is equal to 1 over 18, what is it, 1840? Yes. 1 out of 1840 AMUs. So really, the mass of an electron is nothing. Okay. So now, again, just to recap, you're going to draw this atom in the middle, and you're going to label it with protons, neutrons, and electrons. And you're going to write down that information underneath the flaps that we talked about. We're going to get more practice with this later on. Hopefully you enjoy putting this together, and it will help you to understand the parts of the atom. Again, make it colorful, make it neat, make it pretty. You can draw more pictures if you want to, if you think of any, and put it in your interactive notebook on page 13, and I'll see you later.